The reason we are here today, my name is David Cruz. I am the National Communications Director for LULAC. We are here because of them, the next generation of Latino leaders in America and Puerto Rico, who are often the first ones to volunteer to serve in defense of their country. That was the story of the young woman about whom we will speak this afternoon. Angelina Resendiz, may we never forget her name. Angelina Resendiz. She went in to protect her country, and she served loyally and courageously, and yet she was murdered. And so today you're going to hear from the men and women in LULAC and our community who are demanding action, not requesting it anymore. We are demanding action from the U.S. Department of Defense and specifically the United States Navy. And we're also asking that members of Congress on both sides of the aisle come together and once and for all stand up for what is right. We're honored to have two national presidents in this room, our current president, Roman Palomares, who will speak momentarily, and I want to recognize former national president Hector Flores. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce now our National Women's Law Center representative, Adrienne, who is here for her remarks. If I may please call upon her. Please come up, Adrienne, and introduce yourself more fully to the media and, of course, your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you all today. My name is Adrienne Vartanian. I'm a senior counsel at the National Women's Law Center, and we're an organization that fights for gender justice. I'm so honored to be here with LULAC, with Ms. Cantu Castle, and to stand up for Angelina Resendiz, another woman lost to a senseless act of violence. The National Women's Law Center extends our sincerest condolences to Ms. Cantu Castle and to Angelina's family and friends. We are in solidarity with you, and we join you in your call for a thorough investigation into what happened to Angelina. You deserve answers, and so do all of those serving. Sexual harassment and assault are pervasive across our armed forces. Recent reforms have provided critical improvements, including the creation of the Office of Special Trial Counsel and a process to investigate complaints such as sexual assault and harassment outside the chain of command. Yet oversight, transparency, and accountability are needed to ensure that these reforms are fully implemented and functioning as intended. And while the military has made some progress, more must be done. We believe that elimination of sexual assault in the military should be an urgent DoD priority. Unfortunately, we have seen Secretary Hegseth turn his back on transparency, question the role of women in the military, and criticize the system for reporting harassment, referring to frivolous complaints and walking on eggshells. We already know that many military survivors don't report misconduct because they fear retaliation for speaking up. We're deeply concerned that Secretary Hegseth's words and actions will exacerbate this fear and empower harassers to act without consequence. We urge the Department of Defense to respond to your call for transparency and accountability and to make clear its commitment to confronting the systemic problem of sexual harassment and assault in the military. There must be no more victims of assault while under the military's watch. One necessary step towards that accountability is providing answers about the circumstances of Angelina's death. We must honor Angelina's life by calling for justice for her, her family, and all the service members who've had the courage to share their stories in order to drive change. Thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for the honor of joining you.
Thank you and the organization that you represent. We certainly appreciate it. Next, I would like to introduce our national president, Roman Palomares, himself a veteran and someone who has been on the front lines defending the lives of women who have been slain in uniform. President Palomares.
Thank you for being here. So good afternoon. I stand here today in full support of the Military and Veterans Committee, which I helped start about 12 years ago. And all the leaders that are gathered here beside me. We are united for one reason, and that reason is justice for Navy sailor Angelina Resendiz. On behalf of LULAC, let no one be mistaken. We will not relent. We will not stop. We will not go silent. We will not give up. The United States Navy and the Department of Defense must be held accountable, and they will respond to the demands of all of you and the American people. Angelina Resendiz was not only a sailor, she was a daughter, she was a family, she was part of a community that believed in service, honor, and country. And that's one of the main reasons she joined the military. She deserved protection within the ranks she served. Instead, she was murdered, allegedly by a serial offender within the military. No service member should ever fear danger from within their own ranks. We understand there is an enemy outside our borders, but the enemy within, misconduct, abuse, violence, and cover-ups, must be confronted forcefully and immediately. LULAC helped pass the Vanessa Guillen Act with bipartisan support in Congress because tragedies like this demanded reform. Yet once again, we are forced to ask whether those safeguards are being followed and whether Navy leadership acted swiftly, transparently, and truthfully. And those are the questions that we have. The time has long passed for this kind of failure. We are calling for a transparent, thorough, and independent investigation into the death of sailor Angelina Resendiz. We are demanding that every party responsible be identified and brought to justice. We are demanding answers for Angelina's family. And we are demanding accountability for every breakdown in leadership that enabled this tragedy. Our call today is not just about one case. See all that? This action is about every service member, man and woman, who continue to face military sexual trauma, harassment, assault, and in this case, the unthinkable, taking a life. Courage in uniform should never be met with betrayal in uniform. To the Resendiz family, you are not alone. LULAC stands with you. Our community stands with you. And we will pursue the truth until justice is done. I call on every American who believes in accountability to contact your elected members of Congress, demand oversight, demand answers, demand enforcement of the laws already on the books. And to our leaders in Washington, act. Do not delay. Do not deflect. Do not diminish this moment. Justice for Angelina Resendiz is not optional. It is an obligation. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, President Palomares. I now want to call and want to ask all of us to stand in solidarity with our next speaker. Esme Cantu Castle, a courageous woman. Her daughter is the one about whom we all gather here today, and the country stands with her. Every Latino in this nation needs to stand with this mother, and the mother, sister, and daughter of every service member in uniform who is being assaulted, attacked, mistreated, and yes, murdered. Please join me in welcoming Esme Cantu Castle.
Thank you. Thank you, LULAC. Thank you everyone who's here right now. Thank you everyone who cares and has been supportive through this. All I'm asking, all we're asking is for an independent investigation into the leadership and into the systemic failures that happened, the things that could have prevented this harm for my daughter. You have an individual who was allowed to join the military, who did not complete a pretrial diversion. That needs to be investigated. I'm sorry. Like you have someone who's a criminal with already a history of violence against women, and you let him into the military. There were 4 women harmed by Copeland before he took my daughter's death. It spans out over a year. This wasn't one after another. This was progressive. Nothing was put in place to prevent this. He was on the Truman. He harmed a woman. She reported it. It was being investigated. He was deployed to Germany on the Truman. He raped a woman. This is public information. This is how we learned through the Article 30. This is what we learned through the Article 32 hearing. And after he raped her, he was, again, another investigation, transferred to the Williams. Nothing in place for the women that are on the Williams. Or we have no idea what was happening for the women that he harmed. It isn't until my daughter's death that we know that now action is being taken for them. On the Williams, he had a partner, right? That domestic violence. He strangled her. Again, investigation. And the command issued a restraining order. Nothing in place other than that. He harms a civilian, and 5 days later, he takes my daughter's life. There were 4 different entities or groups that could have taken action. This was foreseeable harm, and any reasonable person would have taken action. Why they did not, I do not know. Only an investigation is going to be able to discover the reasons for that. There was a lot, it's just, we have statutes already in place. It was said in the Article 32 hearing that his roommate saw her body. She was already gone. They didn't know if she was breathing or not. They did nothing. They said nothing. The next, after that, right, that was that morning, her petty chief said that he came to Copeland's door because he was missing work. They were looking for him. They were worried about him. They knew that her friends were already looking for her. He said that he saw her in her bed, in his room, wrapped up in a blanket, and that she waved him off. But he did nothing. He left them both there. And then right after that, about 3 days later, they could not find Copeland or my daughter. Then Copeland showed back up to work without her. They had an opportunity to do something, and nothing was done. That needs to be investigated. I believe that there's got to be some kind of policies and procedure, even just, common sense that there's something wrong is happening. You need to do something. Nothing was done. And I think that warrants an independent investigation. The communication that they had with me, I was told that my daughter was okay. I was told that they found her and that she was okay, and that she was told to show up to work the next day, and that didn't happen. They don't have to speak to me, but if you're gonna speak to me, tell me the truth, right? If you're gonna speak to any family, you need to be able to speak the truth, and that didn't happen. The command issued a public statement. They issued it to Congress, right? The members of Congress that were asking questions. The Department of the Navy, the Secretary of the Navy issued a statement. It was directed to Senator Kane. In both those statements are contradictions of statements of fact provided at the Article 2 hearing. One of them is from the department, the Navy, right? The Secretary of the Navy put in a document that he was told that what happened was she got locked out of her room. She texted a friend. The friend came and could not find her. That was the end. That's all he knew. That we know was not true. That's not true. That's not what happened. But why is the Secretary of the Navy's commanders giving this information to him as the truth? I believe that we're not going to call anybody liars, and I'm not going to accuse people, and I'm not going to claim things that aren't true, but that is incompetence to my simple civilian standard. That, to me, seems like they don't care. Someone does not care. Someone is not taking this serious enough that they're going to give the Secretary of the Navy information for him to use as truth. And we all know that that's not true. That absolutely should be investigated. We cannot trust the command itself to do its own investigations. They've shown that they are not able to. You have that the first statement that came out from the command. They admitted that they never reported her missing, and that the police, right, the state of Norfolk is the one who informed NCIS that she was missing. Not one time did her command make that report. I don't care if 500 people reported her missing. The command should have been one of them, and that did not happen. And I want to believe that there is a policy and there is a statute that requires that they look for their sailors. And that's all we're asking for, right? It's an independent investigation into these things. This is institutional installation versus enforceable accountability. We have a closed system, and that cannot be the final authority on its own failures. We have statutes put in place to protect women, because of them, we have statutes, right? Congress has acted in our cries and attempts to, have justice and keep our service members safe. But those statutes aren't implemented or followed. And there is no other cause of action within those statutes. We need a cause of action for our sailors, for our service members, active duty and veterans. They should, there's a request that needs to be dealt with there. And thank you. I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, with all respect, I'm going to have to excuse the young people who need to go on to their next session, but the rest of us will remain, and this very important press event will continue. I want to thank Esme. Esme, please know that we will never abandon you. Please have a seat and join us right up front. So I would now like to introduce a woman who has stood with Esme, and that's Libby Lazaro. She is the military sexual trauma chairperson. Libby, please come up. Thank you very kindly. And if you would like to be excused, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for your support. Aren't they beautiful? Give them a round of applause. They're the future. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Libby Lazaro, U.S. Army, retired Sergeant First Class, and combat veteran, as well as military sexual trauma chair for LULAC. Before I begin, I wanted to acknowledge what you just heard from Angelina's mother, Esme. She shared what no parent would ever have to learn through a criminal investigation. The details, the failures, and the painful reality of what happened to her daughter. We are here today in Washington, D.C. during this legislative conference because critical questions remain unanswered. We demand accountability and transparency regarding the May 29th murder of Sailor Angelina Resendiz. She was murdered at a United States military base, on a base that represents structure, discipline, and duty, on a base where service members are supposed to be protected, on a base where leadership carries a responsibility and duty not only to mission readiness, but to human life. We stand here today because of the consequences of inaction are not abstract. They are human. They are families that will live with permanent loss. The consequences are service members who question whether their safety is truly a priority. This press conference is about responsibility, institutional responsibility, and command responsibility. Where warning signs are missed, concerns dismissed, policies fail, and oversight breaks down. It fails the very people it's meant to protect, those of us who protect our nation. The lack of preventable action did more than create vulnerability. It created opportunity. Opportunity for a violent serial offender. A predator left to move around freely within a system that should have stopped him. A predator who was transferred and free to exist within spaces that were meant to be secure. Left to choose his next prey. While those responsible for safeguarding others did not communicate the threat. That is not simply a failure of procedure or protocol. It is a result of an ineffective system. The United States military asks extraordinary commitment from those of us who serve. It demands loyalty, discipline, and integrity. In return, it carries an unbreakable obligation to safeguard its service members. Transparency is not optional. Accountability is not negotiable. We are here to ensure that Petty Officer Angelina Resendiz is not reduced to a report, a story, or a closed case. We are here to ensure that her life and her loss compel change. When systems fail and no one answers for it, failure becomes precedent. I will give my remarks in Spanish. Mi nombre es Livier Lázaro, sargenta primera clase retirada de los Estados Unidos, y encargada del Comité de Tramo Sexual de LULAC. Quiero reconocer lo que acabamos de escuchar de la madre de Angelina Resendiz. Ella compartió lo que ningún padre debería de tener que conocer a través de una investigación criminal. Los detalles, las fallas y la dolorosa realidad de lo que le pasó a su hija. Estamos aquí hoy en Washington, D.C. durante esta conferencia legislativa porque preguntas siguen sin respuesta. Exigimos responsabilidad y transparencia con el respeto del asesinato del día de 29 de mayo de la marinera Angelina Resendiz. Fue asesinada en una base militar de los Estados Unidos. En una base que representa estructura, disciplina y deber. En una base donde se supone que los miembros de servicio están protegidos. En una base donde el liderazgo tiene la responsabilidad y el deber, no solo de la preocupación de la misión, pero de la vida humana. Estamos aquí hoy porque las consecuencias de inacción no son abstractas, son humanas, como pueden ver aquí detrás de mí. Son familias que viven con pérdida permanente. Son miembros del servicio que cuestionan si su seguridad es realmente una prioridad. Esta conferencia de prensa se trata de responsabilidad institucional, responsabilidad de los que estaban a cargo. Cuando se ignoran señales de advertencia, y se descartan preocupaciones y se rompe la supervisión, se falla precisamente a los quienes suponen que deberían de haber protegido, a quienes protegen a esta nación. La falta de acción preventiva hizo más que crear vulnerabilidad, creó oportunidad. Oportunidad para un delincuente violento, un depredador que pudo moverse libremente dentro de un sistema que debió detenerlo. Un depredador que fue transferido y libre de existir en espacios que deberían de ser seguros. Libre para elegir a su próxima víctima. Mientras quienes eran responsables de proteger a otros no comunicaron la amenaza. Esto no es simplemente una falla de procedimiento o de protocolo. Es un resultado de un sistema ineficaz. Las Fuerzas Armadas de los Estados Unidos exigen un compromiso extraordinario de quienes servimos. Exigen lealtad, disciplina y integridad. A cambio tienen una obligación inquebrantable de proteger a sus miembros. La transparencia no es opcional. La rendición de cuentas no es negociable. Estamos aquí para asegurar que la suboficial Angelina Resendiz no sea reducida a un informe, a una historia o un caso cerrado. Estamos aquí para asegurar que su vida y su pérdida obliguen el cambio. Cuando los sistemas fallan y nadie responde por ello, el fracaso se convierte en precedente. Muchas gracias.
Before I introduce our final speaker and open it up for your questions, I wonder if we would be here today if the last name was not Resendiz, if the last name was not Martinez, if the last name was not Guillen. I wonder we would be here today if Ms. Resendiz looked differently, if the color of her eyes were different, the color of her hair, yes, even the color of her skin. I asked the Secretary of Defense, would you be standing where you are today without the Latino community supporting the rank and file members of this military branch of the U.S. Navy? And I asked the mothers, nuestras madres latinas, will you do as Mama Guillen said when her daughter Vanessa Guillen went? Do not send your children into a military service rank or branch that will not protect the lives of your sons and daughters. I give you with that the chair of the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee, Larry Romo. Vice President.
I proudly serve as LULAC National Vice President for Veterans, but also I served 28 years and retired as an Air Force officer, Lieutenant Colonel. And also I had the privilege of serving for 7 years as a Director of Selective Service for the United States. And I'm also a member of the National Security Leaders for America, which is important because we want to have an optimal national security posture here in the United States. And if you can't take care of your military members, you weaken national security. And in this case, the Navy weakened national security because they didn't protect 3 of their females, and also there was 2 other civilians that were affected. So the Navy was negligent in this regards. So I'm going to close it, and I have a list of why we're here today, and what we want the Navy to respond to and to hold them accountable for accountability and justice. Why did the Navy allow accused United States Navy Sailor Jeremiah Copeland to enlist in the Navy even though he had a history of assaulting women? The U.S. Navy recruiter should have done a background check to include unsealing Copeland's juvenile record, which the recruiter was obligated to do by law. All this could have been prevented. All these assaults and murder could have been prevented if the Navy Recruiting Service had done their job and not allowed him to join the Navy. Our poor background checks happening in other instances. Why did the Navy transfer Copeland to other Navy ships? It was like one of the ship captains wanted to get rid of their problem sailor. Why did the Navy allow Copeland to be free in the barracks while being investigated for the other 3 sexual assaults on Navy personnel and also a domestic abuse of a partner? They allowed a sexual predator loose in the barracks, and got another victim. This time, a sailor, Angelina Resendiz, was murdered. Why did the Navy mishandle the search for U.S. Navy Culinary Specialist Angelina Resendiz once she was declared missing? Why have no Navy supervisors been held accountable as the U.S. Army did for a United States Army soldier Vanessa Guillen when she was murdered? Why did the U.S. Navy give the remains full of maggots to the mother of U.S. Navy Culinary Specialist Angelina Resendiz? This is why LULAC has asked Congress, the House, and the Senate Armed Services Committee to get the Navy to create an independent committee to review the actions and inactions by the U.S. Navy and make recommendations. The United States Army, which was proactive, created an independent committee for the Vanessa Guillen murder, which ensured accountability and justice. What is the Navy hiding? Thank you.
Friends, we want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions, make any comments that you wish. May I ask our distinguished speakers to come up? And if you have a question for any of them, please step up and or stand up and just ask them whatever you wish to know or how else we may be able to support them. I want to recognize Ramaric DeLuna, who is here from the Vice President of the Northeastern United States. We have many distinguished members. Ray Mancera, Vice President from the Southwestern United States. So we have a lot of distinguished folks here, and of course the young people had to go on to their session. But does anyone have a question? Yes, Vice President Mancera.
Yes, thank you.
Please speak up.
Our condolences, Ms. Guillen, for your loss, for Resendiz. My question is, and I walked in a little late, has there any bill been filed in reference to this by Congress to ask the Navy to comply and give any and all information?
Please step up, if you would.
So, yes, there in the beginning, 2 letters were issued to the Navy asking several questions. The responses that were received are inconsistent with the statement of the facts given to us by the prosecutor during the Article 32 hearing. So both letters, right? There was one sent to the base specifically. There was one sent to the Secretary of the Navy. Both those are responded to. The responses are, again, they contradict each other and they're inconsistent with what we know to be true.
And no files have been shared with you of any kind?
Just just those 2 letters, and those are public.
Any other questions or comments that anyone would like to ask or share?
Yes, well, asking for independent investigations, but what has the military done on their level? Who conducts investigations, firsthand before this would be outsourced?
And Larry, could you step up also and comment on that, please? Please step up.
The accused has been charged. So the NCIS is doing those investigations internally. But really, there has been no investigation of what we asked the Navy to do in regards to who was held accountable, why did the supervisors give the wrong information to her, why did the supervisors, why did they protect the sailor? So all those questions have not been answered. So the only thing the investigation directly have to do with the prosecution. You can correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
From what I understand, it is the command's responsibility to complete a thorough investigation.
And that would be the command at the base where she was located?
That would be her commander, the ones who did not report her missing, the ones who did not stop any of the, they had ample opportunity to prevent this from happening. You have, the command of the petty chief who saw her wrapped up in a blanket and did nothing. So we cannot depend on the command to give us, an unbiased investigation.
I want to ask Adrian, what other things do you think we might be able to press the Navy to create an independent committee in regards to the National Women's Law Center? What are your thoughts on that?
Would you step up at the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, we are supporting the request for an independent investigation and generally pushing for greater transparency and accountability regarding the reforms that have been put into place and all of these procedures. We know that transparency is needed, and we are working with Congress to try to ensure that what's happening in the military is available to members of Congress and the public.
Thank you. One more.
David, I have a follow-up question on mine regarding the independent investigation. Okay, in my community, there's a homicide, and let's say it's in-house, a law enforcement officer. Then you get the Texas Rangers, an outside agency, called in, and y'all ask for independent. Who would this independent agency be to come in, pick up where the military left off?
Well, what we're asking for is not a criminal investigation. We're asking for a systemic investigation to figure out the gaps and the failures. So they're two different things. We're asking for Vanessa Guillen. We actually had HVAC do the independent investigation, and through those findings is how we found out what we needed to fix or enforce, and that was where we got the Vanessa Guillen Act. So that's why those answers are crucial, because it's not criminal. It is institutional.
Or as the criminal investigation proceeds, they want to know what's going on within the structure of the command and the military. We have a question from President Hector Flores. Yes, sir, Mr.
My
President.
question is, at what point does it go outside the military command? Do they complete the investigation and control it? And at what point would they go, say, for the U.S. Attorney's Office or another entity that can look at it with fresh eyes and can look at the evidence and make a decision? You know, it's a homicide, now we need to go prosecute. Would it stay within the military or it goes outside?
It never leaves the military.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
It stays within its closed universe. Even if, let's say the Vanessa Guillen Act, right? There's supposed to be a special prosecution of third party taken outside of the command. But after that investigation's over, it's still command decision, right? It still goes back to the command to make specific decisions on how to move forward judicially and things like that. So no, it never leaves the
My
military.
secondary question to that, I'm glad we're having a press conference for one, but what about the media and those that can actually dig in and get the true information as to what has happened, detail by detail?
They're denied.
Not the New York Times.
So every time media tries to send out, questionnaires asking for information, they don't receive any information from the military, only what's already available.
One more question, please. Yes, sir. We have Vice President Gabe Portugal from the Northwest.
Yes. Question for you, Larry. With all these names, so many people, so many of our Latino sisters, brothers, is there a possibility to maybe do a class action lawsuit against, in this case, this agency or this?
You can answer that.
Yeah.
I have right now, the Ferris Doctrine stands. That prevents active duty, and you can help me with that, because she's the attorney, I'm just the student. But
Well, this is not my area of expertise, but in terms of the class action, as she mentioned, there's the Federal Tort Claims Act, but because this is considered to be within duty,
incident of service.
yeah, there are barriers, what's referred to as the Ferris Act.
Congress has not defined what incident to service means, and so the courts have defined it for Congress, and so the Supreme Court has defined incident to service to mean all active duty. Anytime that you're active duty and something happens to you, you cannot sue the government. You are barred, and their families as well. So right now, if I wanted to bring a claim against the government for wrongful death because of what happened to my daughter, because it was gross negligence in the situation, I'm barred. She's barred.
Yes.
I want to make one last comment in that I'm very persistent in demanding an independent committee. We had one of our LULAC members, Ket Rodriguez, who was on that for the Vanessa Guillen murder, and they made close to 200 findings. And see, that's how we hold the Navy accountable, the Army accountable, because they actually end up firing people because of the recommendations. They went thorough. Even though it was a criminal investigation, still some of those Navy people were charged with negligence within their system. So that's a way to go because it's outside the chain of command.
Stay here. Ramarie DeLuna, Vice President for the Northeast.
So it looks to me that, we did a lot of work behind the Vanessa Guillen Act, and I'm sorry about what's happened with Angela. shouldn't we be expanding this then to all the branches to make sure that they are all compliant and having independent reviews of also Space Force, also the Air Force, also the Coast Guard, to make sure that this doesn't happen in other branches as well, and if it is happening, that we stop this from happening to other parents and other families as well.
I don't think the statute was limited to one branch. It does not say that it's limited to one branch. This is law implemented for the entire military.
The Vanessa Guillen Act was for all the branches, but here's the catch, or the gotcha. There are certain commands that are more proactive in implementing these measures than others. And so it's become for LULAC a base by base, installation by installation, commander by commander, and command by command effort. Were it not for Esme and the leadership behind her, we wouldn't even be here today, because it's just another statistic.
So that's where my point goes to. I don't think we should stop at the Navy. We should be asking Congress to enforce the laws we have put in place. Enough is enough. We want every single base, every single ship to be monitored, to have an independent review, to make sure that they are compliant with the law. This is a law. It's been a law for years now.
Yes.
Make sure that they're all in compliance. We don't want to see this happen again.
So I would even suggest to add an amendment to give victims, that fall under this statute, a cause of action outside of the military, away to the court.
I apologize. I want to thank you for coming from so far, from Texas. Adrian, thank you for the National Legal Center for Women, and thank you for the leadership you've shown. Livy, I know you come from California. Thank you for having been here. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. National Vice President from LULAC, and everyone who's here, and everyone who may be watching, and will get this at some point in the next few days. Let this not be a statistic. Know this, that LULAC is going to continue to stay on this case. And if you have any service member who's experiencing military sexual trauma, let us not have another victim, and we will never forget Angelina Resendiz. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.